Let's start with a question most people never pause to ask. Why do I feel so exhausted after spending time with certain people? Not tired like you ran a marathon, not sleepy like you need a nap. No, I'm talking about the soul deep, emotionally drained, spiritually depleted kind of tired. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. It lingers, it latches onto your spirit, it makes you second guess your worth, your energy, your place in someone else's life. And here's the truth. That is not your fault. That is a sign. A sign that someone in your life is not here to build with you. They're here to bleed you quietly. You see, not every thief comes to steal your wallet. Some come to steal your peace, your light, your joy. And the most dangerous part? They do it in ways so subtle, so disguised as love, friendship, or support that you don't even realize what's happening until you're completely empty. You give, you pour, you show up, but somehow it's never enough. No matter how much love you offer, how many conversations you hold, how many sacrifices you make, it's like you're filling a cup with a hole in the bottom. They take, they take, they take. And you're left running on fumes, wondering what's wrong with me. Let me tell you something. There is nothing wrong with your heart. You've just been giving it to the wrong hands. When someone has bad intentions, even if they're not conscious of it, your energy becomes their fuel. They don't know how to generate peace, so they borrow yours. They don't cultivate joy, so they feed off yours. And if you're not careful, they'll convince you that this imbalance is normal, that loving them means accepting your own exhaustion as part of the price. But listen, real love is not depletion. Real friendship doesn't cost you your mental health. Real connection does not feel like spiritual fatigue. I've been there. There was a time in my life when I confused being helpful with being used. I thought if I could just love someone hard enough, they'd change. I believed that being patient, being kind, being understanding would somehow unlock a better version of them. But all it did was bury the better version of me. And maybe you're there too. Maybe you've been telling yourself, they're just going through something. Maybe you've been carrying someone else's emotional weight, like it's your responsibility. Maybe you're afraid to let go because you've already invested so much time. But here's what I learned, and I pray you hear this. The longer you hold on to someone God is trying to remove, the more damage you do to yourself. People who are meant to stay in your life don't leave you gasping for breath. They don't make you feel like you're too much when you have needs. They don't disappear when you need support and reappear when they need saving. The people who are sent, not assigned by your fear or attached through trauma, are the ones who replenish. They pour back. They recognize your light and protect it, not consume it. And if you've been ignoring that inner nudge, that whisper of exhaustion, that subtle sense of dread before meeting them, that post-conversation fatigue you can't explain, please know that's not just your imagination. That is your soul trying to protect you. That's God whispering, this person is not meant to go where you're headed. But here's where it gets real. The biggest trap isn't being drained. It's believing you must stay because you're the one with the bigger heart. Let me break this illusion. You are not their healer. You are not their savior. You are not responsible for their transformation. That's between them and God. And I know letting go is hard, especially when your identity has been wrapped up in being the fixer, the helper, the strong one. But strength is not in holding toxic weight. It's in learning when to release it. Because if you don't release what's draining you, you'll never have the space for what's meant to restore you. The truth is, the longer you entertain people who only take from you, the longer you delay the people who are meant to pour into you. You block the blessings by clinging to the burdens. And I want you to ask yourself this right now with honesty and compassion. Who in my life leaves me feeling worse after I interact with them? Who subtly guilts me, manipulates me, or always has a problem I'm expected to solve? Who benefits from me being emotionally available while never being emotionally present for me? Sit with those names. Breathe. Then ask yourself this. If I had peace every day, would I miss them or would I finally feel free? You see, we're not just protecting our time or our boundaries, we're protecting our energy, our assignment, our calling. And when someone consistently leaves you more empty than full, God isn't just asking you to see the red flag, He's asking you to walk away from it. Because here's the truth, most of us don't want to face. If you don't walk away, God will remove them anyway. And when he does, it won't be gentle. It will feel like a storm, but it will be your rescue. So today, I challenge you to trust your discernment, to trust that your tiredness isn't just a feeling, it's a message, to trust that your soul already knows who's here to grow you and who's here to use you. You don't owe anyone access to your spirit just because you love them. You don't owe anyone your light if all they do is dim it. You don't owe anyone a seat at your table if they can't bring peace to your space. Before we move on, take a moment, write this question down and journal on it today. Who is God gently asking me to release? If this message spoke to something deep in you, drop a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe for more truths like this. Thank you for showing up for your soul today. You're not alone, you're evolving. Let me ask you something real. How many times have you believed someone because of what they said, even when everything in your body told you their actions didn't match? Words are easy, they're beautiful, they're poetic, and sometimes they're deadly. Because here's the trap so many people fall into, they confuse what they hear with what is real. We want to believe the person who looks us in the eye and says, I would never hurt you. I'm not like them. You can trust me. I've changed. But what do their actions show you? See, I've learned this the hard way, and maybe you have too. Words are promises. Actions are proof. And when there's a gap between the two, that gap is where your peace will bleed out. That's where confusion begins. That's where your intuition starts yelling, but you silence it with logic, with love, with hope. You tell yourself, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe they just had a bad day. But listen to me. Consistency is louder than charisma. Behavior is more honest than language. Alignment between word and deed is the clearest form of love. You know why Jesus said, you will know them by their fruits? Because fruit is the result of time, growth, and truth. Not the seed, not the flower, the fruit. You can't fake fruit. You can't talk your way into producing an apple if all you're growing is thorns. And it's the same in relationships. People can talk a big game, but how do they behave when no one is watching? How do they treat you when you're not useful to them? How do they show up when it costs them something to love you? If someone tells you they respect you, but they keep crossing your boundaries, that's not respect. If someone tells you they love you, but they consistently hurt you without remorse, that's not love. If someone says they're loyal, but disappears when things get inconvenient, that's not loyalty. And I know it's hard to accept that, because if you're like me, you love deeply. You listen with your heart. You give the benefit of the doubt. You want to believe people mean well. But I've also learned the truth will keep showing up until you're ready to see it. Every broken promise, every missed commitment, every moment they told you one thing and did another, it wasn't an accident. It was a message. It was a mirror. It was a warning. You see, some people use words to keep you stuck. They say all the right things to keep the door open. They feed you visions of a future they have no intention of building. They make you believe they're growing while doing absolutely nothing to prove it. And the longer you listen to their words without checking their behavior, the more you'll start doubting yourself instead of doubting them. You'll start shrinking your needs. You'll start lowering your standards. You'll start gaslighting your own gut. Why? Because you'd rather believe the dream they spoke than accept the reality they live. But here's the truth I need you to hear. If someone wanted to show up consistently, they already would have. If they cared as much as they said, their actions would reflect it. If they meant what they promised, you wouldn't have to beg for evidence. I know that sounds harsh, but clarity is kindness. And love without alignment is not love, it's illusion. Sometimes the enemy doesn't come as an obvious enemy. He comes through the mouths of people who say, I love you, while slowly leading you away from your peace. Remember this, the devil didn't attack Eve with violence, he came with words. Smooth, sweet, seductive words. Words that sounded like wisdom but led to destruction. Words that made her doubt what she already knew. Words that made her question God's voice and ignore the boundaries. And today, he still works the same way. He doesn't just tempt with evil, he deceives with what sounds right. He sends people into your life who say everything you want to hear, but do everything your soul should fear. So here's the moment of truth. Let me ask you, who in your life keeps talking about growth, but never grows? Who keeps promising change, but keeps repeating the same cycle? Who says they're different but leaves you feeling exactly like those who hurt you before? Don't make excuses for them. Don't romanticize the potential. Don't trade your peace for their poetry. Because here's what I believe with every part of me. Love doesn't need to be explained. It shows itself again and again and again. You won't need to constantly compare what they say to what they do. You won't need to stay up at night replaying conversations in your mind. You won't need to convince yourself that maybe next time will be different. Because love, when it's real, walks in the same direction it talks. Let me give you a rule to live by. If their words inspire you, but their actions confuse you, believe the confusion, not the inspiration. Because confusion is your compass. It's your spirit telling you something is off here. It's your inner knowing saying, look deeper, don't settle. And if you don't listen now, you will spend the next year, 5 years, maybe even a decade, holding on to empty words, waiting for someone to become what they only talked about being. You deserve more than potential. You deserve peace. You deserve alignment. You deserve to wake up every day with the confidence that what someone says about you is exactly how they treat you. No confusion, no contradiction, no contortion of your self-worth, just truth, just presence, just love in its realest, most grounded form. So stop begging for consistency. Stop hoping for change that never arrives. Stop believing the fantasy over the facts. And remember this one final truth. Words can build castles in your mind, but only actions build homes for your heart. Choose the ones who show up, not just the ones who speak up. Let me ask you something real, something raw. Why do you feel bad for protecting your peace? Why do you hesitate to say no? Why do you explain yourself over and over? Why do you second guess your instincts just because someone else doesn't like your decision? I'll tell you why. Because you were trained maybe by family, maybe by culture, maybe by trauma to believe that boundaries are selfish. That saying no means you're unkind. That pulling back means you're abandoning people. But let me set the record straight. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks. You don't shut people out. You just stop letting everyone in without checking if they belong. See, people with pure hearts will respect that. They'll honor your time, your space, your emotional needs, even when it's inconvenient for them. But people with bad intentions, they'll twist it. They'll take your boundary and turn it into a weapon against you. Suddenly, you're the bad guy. Wow, so you just don't care anymore? I guess you're too good for me now. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Sound familiar? Let me tell you something. That is not love, that is manipulation. It's not about what you said, it's about what they lost when you finally stopped being available on their terms. Because the moment you draw a line, the moment you reclaim your voice, the moment you stop overextending yourself just to keep someone else comfortable, they lose access. And here's the part no one talks about. Manipulators don't want you, they want access to you. They want access to your time, your energy, your empathy, your resources. But they want it without the responsibility, without the accountability, without the respect. So the second you stop allowing that, their control over you breaks. And that's when they panic. They start gaslighting you, making you question your own decisions, flipping the script so they look like the victim and you look like the villain. I thought you were different. I guess I was wrong about you. You used to be so caring. What happened? Let me tell you what happened. You woke up. You remembered who you are. You stopped confusing guilt with loyalty. And listen, I get it. I know it hurts. Because deep down, you still care. You still want to help. You still remember the good moments. You still believe there's a chance they'll change. But here's the truth. You cannot heal someone who's committed to harming you. You cannot keep pouring into someone who views your kindness as weakness. You cannot continue playing small in your own life just to fit into someone else's dysfunction. And this is what no one tells you about boundaries. They don't just protect you from others, they reveal others to you. Because the people who truly love you, they won't guilt you. They won't beg you to shrink. They won't punish you for evolving. They'll adjust. They'll listen. They'll meet you with empathy. But the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries, they'll resist. They'll fight back. They'll do everything they can to pull you back into the role you used to play, the fixer, the giver, the doormat, the savior. And that's when the test begins. Because guilt is the manipulator's favorite tool, not rage, not threats. Guilt, because guilt is quiet, it's subtle. It creeps in through your compassion. It disguises itself as being kind or being understanding or doing the right thing. But here's what I want you to remember. You are not a bad person for saying no. You are not selfish for needing rest. You are not cruel for refusing to tolerate emotional abuse. Boundaries are not just permission, they're protection. They're a declaration of self-respect. They are a way of telling the world, I love myself enough to choose peace over pleasing. Even Jesus, the ultimate symbol of compassion and grace, had boundaries. He walked away. He withdrew from crowds. He said no. He spent time in solitude. He didn't let everyone have access to him, even when they demanded it. So if he understood the value of boundaries, why are you apologizing for setting yours? Maybe this is the wake-up call you've been needing. Maybe that discomfort you feel isn't because you did something wrong, but because you did something powerful. You broke the cycle. You interrupted the pattern. You refused to be manipulated by someone else's inability to take responsibility for their own emotions. And let's be real, most people who guilt trip you for setting boundaries never had any intention of changing. They just wanted to keep you available while they stayed the same. Let that sink in. Because here's the shift. People who get angry when you set boundaries are the exact people your boundaries were built to protect you from. So stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop trying to justify your need for peace. Stop believing that protecting your energy is a crime. It's not. It's sacred. And I know this journey is hard. The first few no's will feel like betrayal. The first boundary you set will feel like rebellion. You'll wrestle with guilt. You'll hear their voices in your head. But over time, that guilt will turn into peace. And peace is your confirmation. So I want you to ask yourself, who in my life makes me feel bad for putting myself first? Who flips the script when I express a need? Who punishes me emotionally when I assert my boundaries? That's your answer. That's the weight you're not meant to carry into your next season. So today, reclaim your authority, reclaim your access, reclaim your ability to decide who gets the privilege of being close to you. Because the people who truly value you, they won't be threatened by your boundaries. They'll be grateful for them. Let me ask you a question you might not have asked yourself in a while. When was the last time you felt close to God, really close? Not in crisis, not in desperation, but in stillness, in gratitude, in presence. When was the last time your spirit felt nourished? When was the last time you heard God's voice over the noise of the world, or the voice of someone who now lives rent-free in your mind? You see, most people don't realize how spiritually dangerous a misaligned relationship can be. Because the enemy isn't always loud. He doesn't always come in chaos and obvious temptation. Sometimes he sends a person charming, funny, supportive, a good listener, but subtly, quietly, they begin to pull you away from your source. Not by force, not with evil intentions, but with distraction, with noise, with emotional demand. And suddenly you wake up one day and you can't remember the last time you prayed just to connect, not to survive. You can't remember the last time you felt peace. That wasn't tied to whether they texted back. You can't remember the last time you read, reflected, or simply sat in silence with your creator because your energy is tangled in a person who is not from him. Let me be clear. Anything that pulls you away from your soul's alignment is not love, it's interference. I've lived this. I've loved people who were beautiful on the outside, emotionally magnetic, captivating. But every time I leaned deeper into the relationship, I felt myself drifting not closer to purpose, but further away from it. Not closer to peace, but more anxious, more confused, more tired. My prayer life got shorter. My self-discipline got weaker. My inner clarity got cloudy. And if you've been there, you know what I mean? You try to justify it. You say, it's just a season. I'm just busy. They're going through a lot right now. I'll focus on myself later. But slowly, Your connection with God, the one that once felt like home, becomes background noise to a relationship that is stealing more than it's giving. And it's not always obvious. It's gradual. You wake up and check your phone before you pray. You spend more time analyzing their words than reflecting on scripture. You put more energy into fixing them than feeding your own spirit. That's not growth. That's spiritual erosion. And it always starts with distraction. Remember this. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. He doesn't have to make you sin. He just has to make you too tired to pray, too overwhelmed to seek clarity, too emotionally dependent on someone else's validation to remember your worth came from God in the first place. Listen, you are not crazy for feeling distant. You are not weak for drifting. You are human, but you need to wake up because that distance you feel from your Creator, that loss of fire, of clarity, of spiritual hunger, that's not just coincidence. That's God calling you back. That's your soul screaming, "This is not who I am. This is not how I was designed to live." God doesn't leave. We drift. And sometimes the very people we're holding on to the tightest are the ones pulling us furthest from Him. Not all connections are divine. Not all relationships are assignments. Some are just distractions dressed as intimacy. And I want you to ask yourself something bold today. Since this person entered my life, have I grown closer to God or further away? Do I pray more or less? Am I more grounded or more anxious? Do I feel peace or confusion? Because God is not the author of confusion. He doesn't send people who make your life feel like chaos. He doesn't use love to destroy your spiritual alignment. He doesn't bless you with someone who slowly becomes the idol you can't live without. Real God-aligned relationships don't pull you away from your spiritual habits. They deepen them. They remind you to pray, not distract you from prayer. They protect your energy, not drain it. They feed your faith, not test it. They hold you accountable, not cause you to compromise. But when someone is not meant to be there, even if they're not bad, your soul will know. You'll feel it in your silence. You'll feel it in your sleep. You'll feel it in the way you look at yourself in the mirror and ask, who am I becoming? That uneasiness, that spiritual dullness, that's not a phase. That's not stress. That's God's voice whispering through your weariness, come back to me. And it won't get better by accident. You have to choose. You have to decide that your connection to God, to your peace, your faith, your divine identity is more important than keeping someone who makes you forget who you are. Because here's what I've learned. No relationship is worth losing your relationship with God. No connection is worth compromising your calling. No amount of attention is worth exchanging for your alignment. So today, take inventory. Who in your life is costing you your clarity? Who makes you so emotionally exhausted that you don't even have energy left for yourself, let alone for God? Who are you fighting for while you stop fighting for your soul? I know it's hard. I know it's painful. But separation is often God's first step to elevation. And He's not taking them away to hurt you. He's removing them to make space for His presence again. So take a breath, get still, get honest, and don't just ask, is this relationship working? Ask, is this relationship working for my soul? Because the people who are meant for you will never come between you and the one who created you. Let me ask you something. Most people are too afraid to confront. Who pretends to support you but secretly feels threatened when you succeed? We all want to believe that the people around us are for us, especially the ones who've been there from the beginning. Friends, family, partners, the ones we laugh with, the ones who cheer when things go right. But if you're honest, and I mean brutally honest, you felt the shift, the silence after your win, the passive-aggressive comments, the forced smiles, the way they stop clapping when you finally rise. And it hurts, right? Because you thought they'd be proud of you. You thought they'd celebrate you the way you've celebrated them, unconditionally, joyfully, purely. But instead, you feel their energy turn cold. You sense the comparison. You feel them pulling away, not because you failed, but because you finally succeeded. Let me tell you something painful but necessary. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to rise with you. There are people who only love you when you're small, when you're struggling, when you're needing them. because your struggle doesn't threaten their comfort. Your pain doesn't challenge their insecurity. But the moment you start stepping into purpose, the moment you start walking in confidence, the moment you stop shrinking to make them feel big, that's when their true intentions reveal themselves. I've seen this in my own life. People I trusted, people I thought were ride or die, people who said, I've got your back, until that back stood tall and strong. And suddenly their loyalty vanished. Their encouragement faded. Their presence turned into passive resistance. Because here's the hard truth. Some people don't want you to grow. They want you to stay manageable. They want you to stay stuck so they can feel needed. They want you to stay broken so they can feel superior. They want you to stay behind so they don't have to confront their own stagnation. And when you start shining, your light exposes their shadows. Your ambition reminds them of what they're not doing. Your success forces them to face the areas they've avoided. Your elevation feels like their rejection even when you've done nothing wrong. That's not your fault. That's not your responsibility. But it is your truth to see, let's break this illusion. Real friends won't shrink around your success. They'll expand with it. Real love doesn't get jealous. It gets inspired. Real alignment celebrates without comparison. So how do you know when someone's intentions are off? Watch how they respond in 2 moments. When you fall and when you fly, when you're struggling, do they support you? Or do they secretly feel satisfied that you're no longer ahead? When you succeed, do they clap loudly or do they grow quiet, distant, or even critical? See, jealousy is rarely loud at first. It doesn't always show up as open hostility. It often comes dressed as silence, a backhanded compliment, a sarcastic remark, a sudden disconnection, but your soul feels it. You notice that you now feel anxious to share good news with them. You downplay your success just to avoid making them uncomfortable. You shrink back into humility, not because you're grounded, but because you're afraid of losing them. And I want to ask you something vulnerable. Why are you so willing to dim your light just to keep someone else around? Why are you afraid to shine? Why are you protecting their ego at the cost of your expansion? Listen, the people who are meant for you will never require you to be small. They won't clap only when you're broken. They won't cheer only when you're struggling. They won't say, don't forget where you came from as a way of keeping you in the past. They'll say, I'm proud of who you're becoming. They'll say, keep going. I see you. You're just getting started. They'll pray for you louder than they gossip about you. But when someone has bad intentions, they won't say they're jealous. They'll say, you've changed. And they're right. You've outgrown old patterns. You've stopped apologizing for your progress. You've stopped making excuses for people who only show up when you're suffering. And if they can't handle your growth, if they disappear when you rise, if they suddenly turn cold when you succeed, that's your answer. Don't fight it. Don't try to explain yourself. Don't force loyalty where God is revealing misalignment. Because I want you to remember this. God is not elevating you to keep you surrounded by people who secretly want you to fail. He's separating you. He's refining your circle. He's showing you who is clapping out of love and who is clapping out of convenience. And if it hurts, that's okay. Let it hurt. Let it grieve. Let the tears fall. But then let them go. Because the next level of your life requires peace. It requires purity. It requires protection around your purpose. And that means no longer sharing your sacred wins with people who only celebrated your struggles. You are not responsible for their insecurity. You are not responsible for their self-sabotage. You are not responsible for staying small to preserve their illusion of superiority. You are responsible for your calling. And if God is elevating you, don't you dare apologize for it. Don't dim. Don't delay. Don't deny your own success just to make insecure people feel safe. You're not arrogant for growing. You're not prideful for prospering. You're not disloyal for leaving behind the ones who stopped loving you once you started loving yourself. So today, release them with grace. Pray for them if you need to, but don't shrink for them. Because the truth is, the ones who envy your success were never clapping for you. They were clapping for your struggle. And now that you're rising, rise higher. God has more for you and the ones who are meant to walk with you They're already waiting at your next level. Let me ask you something. Most people are too afraid to answer honestly. How many lies does it take before you stop giving someone the benefit of the doubt? 1, 5, 10. The truth is, for those of us with compassionate hearts, we don't walk away after the first lie. We forgive, we explain, we justify, we say things like, they didn't mean it. It was just a white lie. They're just afraid of being honest. But here's the hard truth. Lies are not just words, they are weapons. They don't just hurt, they confuse. They don't just deceive, they disconnect. They slowly poison the soil of trust until nothing true can grow. And still, we stay because we'd rather believe the lie than face the pain of what it reveals. But I need you to hear me on this. Catching someone in a lie is not a coincidence, it's a message. It's not just a mistake. It's not bad memory. It's not miscommunication. It's clarity. And the more you ignore it, the louder the deception grows. I've watched people stay in relationships where lie after lie piled up like bricks building walls between their soul and their sanity. And instead of tearing the wall down, they kept decorating it with hope, with maybe they'll change, with I just need to love them more. But listen to me. You cannot build a future on a foundation of falsehood. Every time someone lies to you, they're saying, I don't trust you with the truth. I'm more invested in controlling how you see me than honoring who I truly am. I care more about my image than your reality. Let that sink in. Because people don't lie to protect you, they lie to protect themselves. And sometimes the lie isn't even in the words, it's in the silence, in the evasive answers, in the convenient memory lapses, in the body language that doesn't match the story, in the timing that always seems off. And when your gut says something's wrong, that's not paranoia. That's not overthinking. That's discernment. That's your spirit telling you, pay attention. And yet we doubt ourselves. We silence that inner knowing because the truth is inconvenient. We think, if I confront this, I might lose them. But let me ask you, what have you already lost by keeping them? Your peace? Your sleep? Your confidence? Your ability to trust your own intuition? I get it. Lies mess with your mind. They make you question yourself more than the liar. They create confusion not just about the facts, but about your entire sense of reality. And that's exactly why they're so dangerous. Because the longer you stay with someone who lies, the more you start adapting to the dishonesty. You stop asking questions. You stop trusting yourself. You start calling chase normal. And I want to lovingly tell you this. That's not love, that's emotional erosion. You are not meant to shrink into confusion just to preserve someone else's comfort. You are not meant to carry the weight of lies on your back, hoping that someday they'll magically become the truth. You are meant for truth. You are built for clarity. You are worthy of a connection where honesty isn't optional, it's expected. Let's talk about why this is so spiritual. Scripture says, quote, God is not a man that he should lie. Numbers 23:19. The truth will set you free. John 8:32. Truth is divine. It frees your soul. It aligns your path. It clears the fog from your spirit. Lies, they do the opposite. And here's what most people miss. If someone is comfortable lying to you, they are already comfortable betraying you. If they lie about the small things, they'll lie about the big ones. If they lie to avoid conflict, they'll lie to avoid accountability. If they lie to control your perception, they'll lie to maintain power. And every time you forgive a lie without change, you're teaching them that your trust is cheap. You're not just tolerating the lie, you're reinforcing it. But listen, this is not about judgment. This is about freedom. You have to stop waiting for proof so undeniable that it shatters your heart before you allow yourself to walk away. The pattern is the proof. And you've seen the pattern. You've caught the lies. You've felt the gut-wrenching confusion. You've woken up wondering, why am I still here? So let me ask you, what will it take? Will you wait for the lie that finally breaks you? Will you stay long enough to become someone you don't recognize? Or will you choose something different, truth, even when it hurts? Because yes, walking away is painful, but staying in a relationship built on deception, that pain is deeper. It lasts longer, and it takes pieces of you you'll never get back. Let me be clear. You are not crazy. You are not overthinking. You are not too much for asking for honesty. You are someone who values trust, and that is not a weakness. It is your power. So today, I want you to ask yourself this without fear, without excuses. Who do I keep catching in lies, but keep allowing back in? Who has already shown me they don't value truth, and why am I still hoping they'll change? And more importantly, what kind of peace could I have if I stopped settling for confusion? Because you deserve the kind of love that doesn't require surveillance. You deserve the kind of relationship where your spirit can rest. You deserve someone who tells the truth not because they fear getting caught, but because they honor your trust. Let this be your wake-up call. No more lies. No more justifications. No more sacrificing your clarity for someone else's convenience. You can forgive, but you do not have to allow access. You can heal without inviting the wound back in. You can love someone and still walk away to protect your peace. Because at the end of the day, peace isn't found in words. It's found in the consistent, quiet rhythm of truth. Let me ask you something that only your soul can answer, not your logic, not your loyalty, not your guilt. Why do you feel unsettled every time you're around them? Not because they said anything harsh, not because they did something openly wrong, but because something deep inside of you whispers, this isn't safe, this isn't right. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's persist. You can't shake the feeling. You feel drained after they leave. You rehearse conversations in your head long after they've ended. You find yourself shrinking in their presence, like your spirit is bracing for something it can't quite explain. And let me tell you, that's not anxiety. That's not drama. That's discernment. There's a reason why your body tightens when they enter the room, why your thoughts spiral when they call, why your energy dips after even short interactions. That's not nothing. That is your soul sending a signal. This person's energy does not belong here. Because your intuition, that quiet knowing, will often pick up on what your mind is still trying to rationalize. I've been there, trying to make excuses for people I felt off around, telling myself, maybe I'm just being sensitive, trying to find the logical reason I didn't feel peace in their presence. But peace doesn't need logic. Peace is the logic. And when it's absent, that's your answer. See, God doesn't just speak through scripture and science. He speaks through stillness, through sensation, through a shift in your spirit that says, this person may not be who they say they are. Something about their presence disrupts your purpose. There is a misalignment here, even if it's invisible to the eye. And that's the hardest part, when the discomfort isn't backed by obvious behavior, when nothing bad has happened yet, but everything feels off. Let me be clear. Just because you can't prove it doesn't mean it's not real. Sometimes your soul knows something long before your mind is ready to understand it, because your energy recognizes energy. Your peace recognizes disruption. Your spirit recognizes danger, even if it's disguised as love, friendship, or charm. Let me ask you, how many times have you stayed in a connection because you were waiting for proof that something was wrong? You felt the unease. You sensed the shift. You heard the whisper in your gut. But because you couldn't explain it, you ignored it. And later, when betrayal finally hit, when the mask came off, you looked back and said, I knew something wasn't right. That's not hindsight. That's discernment delayed. But it doesn't have to be. You don't need to wait for betrayal to validate your discomfort. You don't need evidence to justify walking away. You don't need to explain your spirit to someone who doesn't understand your journey. Listen, relationships from God don't feel like spiritual tension. They feel like peace. They don't make you shrink. They make you stand tall. They don't cloud your thoughts. They clarify them. They don't leave you guessing. They ground you. So if someone's presence feels like pressure, if their energy makes you feel like you have to wear a mask, walk on eggshells, or keep your guard up, that's not alignment. That's warning. And God will always whisper before he shouts. He gives you internal alerts before external damage. He lets your body respond before your heart breaks. He gives you discernment so you don't have to learn every lesson the hard way. But here's where it gets real. Most people don't trust themselves. They second guess. They override their instincts. They choose logic. over vibration and lose themselves in the process because we've been conditioned to believe that unless something is visible, it isn't valid. But I want you to understand this. Your nervous system is smarter than your excuses. Your spirit is wiser than your justifications. Your body is not confused, it's communicating. So stop silencing it. If your soul feels off around someone, you don't owe them access. If their energy feels invasive, you don't owe them explanation. If your inner world starts shaking every time they speak, you don't owe them another chance. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself clarity. You owe yourself the freedom to walk away without proof, without guilt, without looking back. Let me paint this clearly. A divine connection will bring calm, not confusion. It will energize you, not exhaust you. It will call you forward, not hold you hostage. And when someone's presence consistently feels like weight instead of wings, like noise instead of music, like pressure instead of peace, that is not a relationship. That's a spiritual warning. And if you're waiting for a big moment to make the decision, you might miss the fact that the small signals were the real miracle. So today, ask yourself with unfiltered honesty, who do I feel most uneasy around, even if they haven't done anything obvious? Whose presence triggers discomfort in my body, tension in my spirit, or fear in my future? Who do I keep around out of habit, even though my heart has already left? Don't ignore that. Don't minimize it. Don't brush it off as overthinking. Your soul isn't loud, but it is loyal, and it will never lie to you. So listen, if they make you question your worth, if they interrupt your peace without reason, if you feel like you can't breathe around them, you don't need a breakdown to give yourself permission to walk away. You don't need a fight. You don't need closure. You don't need them to agree. All you need is truth. And here it is. Discomfort is direction. Peace is protection, and your intuition is the voice of your future trying to reach you. Don't ignore it another day. Let me ask you the most important question of all. Who in your life is costing you your calling? Not in obvious ways, not through arguments or betrayal, but through distraction, through misalignment, through quiet detours that slowly lead you away from who you were born to become. See, when God places a purpose over your life, and yes, you have one, the enemy doesn't always show up as chaos. He often shows up as comfort, as charm, as a connection that feels good, but deep down steals your focus. It's subtle. You used to wake up early with intention. Now you sleep in because they wanted to talk late. You used to write, build, create, serve. Now your time is spent overthinking their moods, replaying conversations, managing drama. You used to pray boldly, dream fearlessly. Now you doubt yourself, delay your vision, settle for someday. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day far from your purpose and not even know how you got there. Let me tell you something that changed my life. Not all distractions look like threats. Some look like relationships. And just because a person makes you feel loved doesn't mean they're leading you to your destiny. Because love, real love, will never require you to abandon yourself. It will never ask you to pause your purpose just to prove your commitment. It will never require you to stay small to make someone else feel secure. It will never cause you to lose sight of why you were created in the first place. But when someone has bad intentions or even good intentions that don't align with your direction, the first thing they'll pull is your attention. And whatever pulls your attention redirects your energy. And wherever your energy goes, your life follows. So the question becomes, where is your energy going? To growth or to survival? To purpose or to people pleasing? To building or to babysitting someone else's dysfunction? See, the most dangerous connections aren't the ones that destroy your life. They're the ones that slowly delay your life. They don't attack your calling, they distract you from it. They don't tell you to quit, they just keep you so drained that you don't have the strength to start. And what makes it worse, you start thinking this is normal. You start thinking purpose can wait. You start telling yourself, I'll get back to it once they're okay, once this calms down, once we're stable again. But once never comes, because they're not here to walk with you. They're here to hold you where you are. And the longer you stay, the further you drift from the version of you God is trying to birth. Let's get clear. You were not created to play small. You were not created to babysit broken dynamics. You were not created to compromise your fire so someone else doesn't feel burned by it. You were created to carry something sacred, to build something meaningful, to live in alignment with your divine assignment. And I know that word scares people. Assignment. It sounds like pressure. It sounds like work. It sounds like discipline, but your assignment is where your fulfillment lives. Your purpose is the place your peace is tied to. It's the reason why nothing feels quite right when you're out of alignment. And some of you, if you're honest, haven't felt right in a long time, not because you're lazy, not because you lack clarity, but because you've been giving your best energy to the wrong person. And here's the truth. You can't fulfill your purpose while trying to be everything to someone who's not even trying to understand their own. You can't carry your calling and their chaos at the same time. You can't walk your path while constantly looking back to see if they're still okay. Because while you're hesitating, doubting, slowing down for people who never had the capacity to grow with you, your destiny is waiting. The book you were supposed to write, the business you were meant to launch, the people you were called to serve, the life you were meant to live, it's still there untouched because you've been too entangled in relationships that don't serve the version of you that's becoming. And I get it. Letting go feels like betrayal. Walking away feels like failure. Choosing purpose over partnership feels selfish. But it's not selfish, it's sacred. Because when God gives you an assignment, it's not just about you. It's about everyone you're meant to impact. Everyone who needs your story. Everyone who's waiting on the other side of your obedience. And the longer you delay, the longer they wait. So today, I need you to ask yourself with all the courage you can muster, who is pulling me away from my purpose? Whose presence causes me to procrastinate on what I know God told me to do? What connection have I been justifying, even though it's costing me clarity, creativity, and conviction? And once you get your answer, don't argue with it. Don't justify it. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't call it loyalty when it's really fear. Because the longer you delay the decision, the deeper the detour. You don't need their permission to protect your purpose. You don't need a perfect reason to reclaim your path. You just need enough courage to say, this version of me has outgrown this connection. And when you do that, when you finally choose alignment over attachment, watch what happens. Watch how your energy returns. Watch how your clarity sharpens. Watch how your ideas begin to flow again. Because purpose doesn't leave you. It just waits for you to stop leaving yourself. So make the decision. Draw the line. Reclaim the calling. And let this be the moment you stop sacrificing your soul's direction for someone who was never meant to walk the full journey with you. You don't need their applause. You don't need their understanding. You don't need to explain why your peace matters more than their presence. You just need to remember who you are. You are chosen. You are gifted. You are assigned. And when the wrong people leave, the right purpose will rise.